Hi, I'm Vincent McMahon, and today's video I've wanted to do for quite a while. I started researching neuroscience, and I was reading about chimpanzees who were related to as humans, and I discovered that at some point there was an increase in brain size, and the scientists had put that down to actually deceit. That was the reason. And the chimpanzees were using increased brain size to deceive others within the tribe, within the group. So it was fascinating for me to find this out. And obviously that's transferred to humans. We are related to chimpanzees, and so we have that brain capacity, that brain size, and we parallel that ability to deceive others. But actually, the more I researched, the more I found out that a lot of the deceit is used in deceiving ourselves. You know, we deceive ourselves with that large brain size. And so that brought me down a really interesting inquiry line, and to find out that, you know, neuroscientists were talking about this, that Jeffrey Schwartz, the neuroscientist, says, you know, that we get, you know, millions of deceptive brain messages from our brain. And, you know, it's interesting. Our brain, if you think of my brain at this moment, it's been developed over the years based on my experience, my life experience. So the capillaries, all the structures within my brain have developed over the things that I've learned, but it's all in the past. So there's nothing in the future in my brain. It's just like the roads or the capillaries, the structures, the blood vessels, they're all developed from my past experience. And what the scientists are saying, a lot of the messages that we get from our past experience are not good. You know, they're telling us, you know, I don't have what it takes, I'm not good enough, I'm not loved, you know. And so all these messages tend to not put us in a good state. They tend to make us a bit more depressed. So all these deceptive brain messages we're deceiving ourselves with, because it's not true. It's not true that I'm not good enough. It's not true that I don't have what it takes. So how do we change? How do we move away from a brain that's developed on our past, and a brain that keeps on giving us these deceptive brain messages? And Jeffrey Schwartz, a neuroscientist, was lucky enough to work with Henry Stapp, a physicist, a quantum physicist. And Henry Stapp added in a really important ingredient. He said that actually it's not the brain that will give us the way through. It's the mind. And the mind allows us to have a choice. It's that extra ingredient that has a choice that says, I don't believe these messages. These messages aren't true. And then the mind can lead us to a newer way, a more positive way of thinking. So it was fascinating for me to think, wow, you know, that we are patterned by the brain in our thinking based on previous things. But, you know, how do you get out of that circle? How do you get out of that brain that's just keep on giving these messages to us? And Henry Stapp, brilliant to say, yeah, it's actually the mind. And how the mind works, we need to, you know, start choosing new things, not just affirmations, positive affirmations, but if we start feeling more positive, if we start, you know, feeling that we're good enough, feeling that, and okay, you know, at the beginning it might be feel a little bit strange to us, and we might feel a little bit false with doing it, but, you know, as we begin to do it and practice, what happens in our brain is really interesting, because in order to create new capillaries, new ways of our brain to think, they need a bit of time, actually. So if something happens, an event happens, the brain is already set up to think a certain way, and the capillaries are there, the blood will go into that old way very quickly. If we've got to think a new way, we have to almost create these new capillaries, and that takes a little bit of time. So the best way to give our brain time to do this is to just sit in the feeling, that new positive feeling that we are good enough, that we have what it takes, and that we are loved. And the longer we stay in that feeling, the more time we give our brain the chance for those capillaries to develop. As Jeffrey Schwartz had an amazing phrase. He said, Neurons that fire together wire together. Okay, so if the longer we feel the feeling, the more time we're giving those neurons to fire together. And the more time we give them to fire together, the better the chances of them wiring together. Yeah, so you're setting up the capillaries, the new capillaries, with a new positive way of being in the world. And so, you know, all those deceit messages of deceiving ourselves, we move away from that and we give ourselves a much better message, a much better sense within ourselves, within that inner dialogue that keeps talking to us all the time. What if we got positive messages from that inner dialogue that told us that we were great, that we were loved, that we were good enough? And I think it's amazing to use the mind, because there's so much talked about the brain at the moment, that in fact, to separate the brain from the mind, Genius by Henry Stapp, and he's done the quantum experiments about it, and he can verify exactly what's happening, to bring in the mind as an additional tool, where we choose a different way over the brain, which is just developed on the past experience. It's really positive, it's really genius, and it's great to be able to share it. And you know, I find it a really special story, all the way from the chimpanzees to ourselves, but yet using the mind, we can make it a better life experience.